Hello, welcome to the second episode of Harmony and Friends, casual conversations about art and business. I'm super excited that you have joined us here. And while I tell you a tiny bit about the concept and we start to get to those artist introductions, I have a question for you as well. So let me get that up here for you. If you're watching right now, tell us, we're curious. What is your own art business? How long have you been building it? And what is your greatest challenge that you've encountered growing it? And if you are in the comments, a big part of this live stream is building that artist community, making connections. So please do comment on each other's information. Feel free to throw in your social media there so that we can all connect. I'd love to hear from you. All right. So before we get to the artists, and we have three awesome new artists today, different ones than last week, I want to share like why I came up with this concept. I know it's not something completely new, but I haven't seen it done a lot with artists. I've seen it done, like my husband watches it with comedians, and this is not a new format, obviously, that I came up with, having four people talk to each other. But I think it's cool to do it as artists. I think there's so much that we can learn from each other, and even if it's not a step-by-step tutorial, every single person, if we have like one little nugget of wisdom, that's a lot that we can walk away from. And I also really want to share with you like what all are the opportunities, what are the options to run an art business. So today you're going to speak to different types of artists, and that's the idea every week, that sometimes you'll hear from a surface pattern designer, sometimes you'll hear from like a picture book, illustration focused person, or someone who's an editorial illustration, or you might have a graphic designer, or you might have a painter. There's so many different options. You can do art licensing, you can focus on product, you can go into publishing. I mean, the art world is so big. And when I was growing up, I really didn't know a lot about what was possible as an artist. So I hope that these live streams and these conversations between artists help you have a bigger view of what all is possible. So thank you for joining us. And with that being said, we are going to hop over now and we are going to check out all the artists. So thank you all so much for joining today. I'm really excited. We're going to chat about how the three of you are doing this, and I'll throw in a comment here and there, but how are you doing it to, balance not working on your art business full time, maybe that's not even a goal, but how do you balance that with a different career, a different job, or raising a family, or both? And we're going to jump right in, but first we're going to do our round of introductions. So Amanda, could you start us off? 2 or 3 minutes, just tell us about yourself and your art business.
Sure. My name is Amanda Corcoran. I am a surface pattern designer, and I license my art to different companies in the homeware market. And I started about 4 years ago. I've always had an interest in art, and I was actually a high school teacher for 10 years and taught web design. So I have a background in programming as well. So I'm kind of a techie artist. And I am, because of that, I am actually pursuing and filming 3 courses right now for pattern design as well. So you can find my art on everything from table linens to curtains to candles in TJ Maxx, Home Goods, Nordstrom Rack. I've kind of been in all of them. And I also license my designs and fabric collections to 4 different fabric companies as well.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm super interested in art licensing, so I can't wait to hear all about how you got into that field.
Yeah.
Lona, would you share next?
Yeah, I was going to say, wow, I'm so interested in hearing more, Amanda. That's so cool. But yeah, hi, everyone. My name is Lona Laughhunn. I have been an artist all my life. Like, that's part of my core identity is being an artist. And I really started because my mom was an artist and I wanted to be just like her. But it was a way for us to really escape the life that we were in and kind of deal with like mental health and trauma and a lot of different things. That was why I started in art. And then I took a break and I like dove head into my career and burned out from it. I was just working so much. And I turned back to art to kind of refill my cup, I guess. And it just kind of naturally became a business. I just have so much inventory, and I was like, okay, I need to start selling this stuff. And then after that, I was like, oh, murals are cool. Maybe I'll start to do some murals. And so here I am now, a muralist. So yeah, it just keeps evolving, but the core reason I do it has always remained the same, and that's because it's something that completes me. It's something that I need in my life.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear everything that you've achieved and how it's evolved. And I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that feeling of like, you're just an artist. It's just who you are. Like, no matter what else you're doing, that's always one piece that has to happen. So I think that's where that balance comes in. It can be pretty tricky. So we'll love to hear about that later. April, how about you?
Hi, I'm April. I go by monkeymintaka online, and I'm a motion graphic designer by day. I have a background in 3D, so I did that for many years, and I actually started drawing again in 2017 to get away from the computer as a hobby, and it kind of became more of like a passion than my actual job. So now I'm a motion graphic designer, moved into that, and now I'm kind of trying to transition my raw work more into an illustrator as well. So I kind of encompass like everything, work and play is illustration all day long. And Lona, it's really cool that you're a muralist, because they actually asked me to design a mural at work, and I did. And they asked me to paint it, and I was like, I'm not a muralist. It's a completely different thing.
That is funny. You guys can chat about that more later. I think Lona is going to share a little about that project. So very, very cool. Well, thank you for introducing yourselves. April mentioned I didn't really introduce myself last time, so I'll give you a quick, tiny spiel. So I'm Harmony, and I am right now a watercolor artist. I say right now, that's for like the last 2 years maybe has been my focus, but similarly to how Lona said, like I've always been an artist, and so there's always been some kind of form, whether it's like large abstracts or I did floral design, like something creative was always going on. So right now my focus is watercolor art, and I've been really happy because I feel like it took me quite a few years of I just wanted to learn to draw well. I actually wanted to paint well, and then someone told me you have to learn how to draw first to be able to be a good painter. I'm like, oh, really? Like, I got to do that first? So that's how I first started art back up again. And then I just kind of fell in love with watercolor and just getting better at it. And I really don't right now have the urge to do other large paintings anymore. So it's funny how that went. But I've also found myself in that I think I know more where I want to go in like the licensing and product space. And that took a long time because I was looking at picture book illustration and like so many different things until you finally find the thing that feels like this feels fun and right. And like I'm growing and like my talents are a good fit. So that is where I am at. But enough about me. Let's get to some of the questions. We're going to do it's more like a quick fire round. So these questions are shorter, again, just to set the scene a bit for everyone watching. So I'm going to go around in a circle. Amanda, we'll start with you, then April, then Lona, and just go around for those 3 questions. So I think you already answered it a bit, but for those just joining, what kind of art business do you have in like 1 or 2 sentences?
So I am a surface pattern designer, which means that I design pretty much 100% repeat seamless patterns that can be found on anything from fabric, wallpaper, clothing, notepads, notebook covers, gift bags, wrapping paper, anything that you would find a repeat pattern on. I pretty much only draw in repeat patterns. I don't create standalone graphics.
Super cool. My mind was blown when I finally learned that that was an industry. Like, it's so obvious, you're just going to TJ Maxx or whatever, but you don't think about like there's people, this is what they do for a living. Oh my goodness, incredible. So very, very cool. April.
I guess I could call myself an illustrator. I started off doing the Etsy thing, and I was very much creating lots of products at home with, how everyone does it, making stickers and notebooks and zines and prints and things, but I've slowly transitioned to like, it's just was too much to keep up with. So I still have an Etsy shop, but I'm trying to get into children's books now. So I'm trying to work on my children's book portfolio, and I have a Patreon and YouTube. So yeah, an all-rounder, but an illustrator, I guess is a word.
Awesome. Thank you. I love, and yeah, if you're watching this, I assume you like watching artists on YouTube, and April's channel is amazing. You should definitely go check it out. That's how we know each other, actually. That's I followed her, and I'm just a big fan of those videos. So, Lona.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what don't I do, really? I love painting. So that's one of my paintings right there. And then resin art, jewelry. I have a laser printer and engrave things. So a little bit of everything. And then, of course, the murals have been the most recent. So
very, very cool. And always really colorful and like joyful and alive. I love it.
Yes, that's the common theme is color for sure.
I love it. Very cool. All right. Next question. When did you first start working on your art business, Amanda?
So I really just started pursuing it about 4 years ago. I've always been into art. As I mentioned in my intro, I was actually a high school teacher for 10 years, taught web design, but I really only took that job for the art side of the web design. I actually, didn't love all the programming part of it. And then I left teaching to raise my 3 kids. And it was about 4 years ago that I was like, I was doing little freelance jobs here or there, but I was like, nope, this is what I've always wanted to do. So even though I was in my 40s, I was like, heck with it. Let's better now than in my 50s. So I just started and I haven't looked back, honestly.
That's awesome.
I love it. I gotta say, I think there's something to be said for the aging process. Like, I feel like I'm more and more myself the older I get, and so it's a nice experience.
It is. Yeah. Becoming yourself.
Exactly. April?
I started 2017 drawing again, and then 2018 my YouTube and Instagram. And then I think it was 2019 I started Etsy, and then another year late after that Patreon. So like every year I've added something, and now hopefully next year I can add children's books to it. So yeah, just keep growing that empire.
That's such a smart approach. Honestly, I've heard that from a lot of people, because it's like you're supposed to have multiple income streams for arts and do all this, but when you're like trying to spread yourself so thin and trying to achieve everything at once, like nothing moves forward. So I think that's actually a really smart approach to focus on one, and when that's kind of running or you've got it down, add the next things. Pretty cool.
Definitely.
Nice. Yeah. So like I said, I've been making art forever, but I really took it seriously, like selling my art, probably right when the pandemic started, because I just had all this extra time on my hands and I was a little bored. And so it was like, I always made art, but then I had the time to really create the website and start networking and putting myself out there and those things and stuff that takes time, because when you're already have another job and you have a lot of different things going on in your life, it's hard to make time for the stuff that isn't as sexy and fun with art, but when I had the time, I was like, all right, I'm going to do this, and I put a plan together and I just made it happen.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, I started back up in 2020 trying to kind of learn how to draw, but it took a while to get to a point where you could monetize that artwork. It takes some time to get better. And now I feel like there's still a huge kind of trajectory of where I want to go with the artwork. And I still don't have an online shop, and I don't have this and I don't have that, but commissions are working really well. So I do feel like there's progress on the art business front. So getting there. All right. So now the question that for this topic is, I think, also really interesting and important. Usually we don't talk about this kind of stuff when we're talking about our art business, but what kind of work do you do outside of the art business? And work does not have to be a job, Amanda.
I don't know. Some days I feel like it's worse than a job. No. So I am actually, I homeschool my 3 kids. So I have an 11, 13, and 15-year-old. So I've been homeschooling for a few years now. And, in addition to that, it's, the typical things that come along with running a household that I deal with. And, one of the things that I tell people when they ask me, well, how do you juggle it? And the biggest thing or advice that I would say is, yeah, it's hard. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There's days it's me in bed with an iPad at 10 o'clock at night trying to draw because it's the only time I have. But I've created, some systems and some organizations with my calendar. And some days it's good, some days it's not. But you just keep putting kind of one foot ahead of the other, and they're not failing school. So I think I'm doing okay.
Well, that definitely sounds like a lot to juggle. So I'm really interested in those systems. I have a question for you on that later that I'll get back to you on. April, I think you mentioned it.
Yeah, I'm a motion graphic designer. So basically I just make videos, edit videos, but also make animations. And in the last couple of years, we've gotten some really cool, like the more creative stuff that we do, the more creative projects we get. So that's been really nice. So sometimes I even get to do like hand-drawn animation, which is really nice. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do. It's a good job. I mean, it has boring days, obviously, but it's a pretty cool job.
Yeah. Well, and at least from the outside, to me, it sounds super cool because, I did this like really sad beginner's video of like trying to animate my drawings. And she's like, yeah, I've seen that. But like, that's really cool to me that you have those skills in addition to the illustration skills. That's fascinating. So, Lona.
Well, I was hired for my most important job 14 months ago, and that's being a mother. Gosh, she's so amazing. And a tough boss for sure. So, but also I'm the regional vice president of sales for a company called Onco Health. It's a healthcare IT company focused on helping patients navigate the tricky waters of cancer. So it's very, very complicated, and it's takes a lot of my time for sure. And I travel too. So my iPad is my best friend when I travel. Love to draw on the plane. And when I am alone in my hotel room, which, never happens as a mother. But yeah, so it's quite a bit to juggle. I have an incredible partner who I don't think I could do any of this without him. And so he makes a lot of this possible too.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'll second that. I think I do feel like I achieve a lot and I'm very organized and productive and ambitious, but at the same time, if I did not have help because I also have a baby, it's like I couldn't do it. There's absolutely no way. So unfortunately, that is, I think, one of the secrets, right? It's like one of the big secrets. Yeah, having help is one of them. Then it's how you use it. If you're just watching movies, you're still not going to get anything done.
Right? Exactly.
But still, you need that relief sometimes. So
yes.
All righty. So I am going to jump to the next topic. This is going to be, just tell us what a week in your life is generally like. So this is not necessarily like the big achievements in your art business or anything, just like a regular week. What do you have to juggle? How do you make time for art? What do you want to share there, Amanda?
So my week, I'll be honest, my weeks vary from week to week. And sometimes I could have my week completely organized and it doesn't end up looking anything like what I have organized. I tend to feel like I'm a little bit of organized chaos in a way. Like I know the main goals that I need to get done, but mostly my week, the mornings are involved with school, teaching the kids. I give them, my attention in the morning and then get them set on their way. It's a little easier now that they were older. It was harder when they were younger and they needed more hand holding. And then usually around 1 o'clock in the afternoon till about 5, it's kind of like hands off mom, only, your dad's in his office, go bother him kind of a thing. And then I try to work on, batching Instagram, working on new, surface pattern designs. You have to be about 5 months ahead. I just turned in my Easter collections. Um, and I'm working on my summer collections in the middle of Christmas. So you have to be a step ahead. And then I also try to have at least a couple hours a week where I try to pitch myself for licensing. But like I said before, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And the only free time I have is sitting in bed at night, drawing on an iPad. And sometimes that's what I have to do. And then on weekends, my husband does, help with the kids a lot and so I do most of my drawing on the weekends actually, and do more of my business boring stuff kind of during the week when I have questions being flown at me from different directions and things like that.
Well, I would love to know, you mentioned this a little earlier, what are your strategies or systems? Like, how do you organize yourself to keep that balance and make sure that you actually get everything done that you mentioned?
So sometimes I don't get everything done. I have been filming a class for about 3 months now, and it probably should have been done a month and a half ago. But I keep just trying to, I'm also a perfectionist. So I think that's maybe why it's not done yet too. But what I basically try to do is, like I said, I try to have kind of a cutoff of when I'm a mom and when I'm at a job. And it's really hard with the kids. And I know it's even hard for me with my husband who works from home. Sometimes I forget and I just barrel in his office. And, he's luckily he was muted, or I would have, been on his work call. So I think that the biggest struggle is having the kids and understand that this is a job. It's not just a hobby. It's not just mom drawing. It's actually a job that I'm making money at. So, and it's gotten easier over the years, but the biggest thing is having those kind of cutoff times where I'm in mom mode. Okay, everybody, now I'm in work mode, so don't bother me unless it's absolutely necessary. And now that they're older, that's worked pretty well. But sometimes I have to go break up some fights or ask them why they haven't done their chores or other things. So it's always really, at the most, I'm 75% work and 25% mom. That's pretty much, I'm always mom somewhere in there, no matter what I'm doing, because they're always home. So, but I try to separate the two, the mom and the work mode. I try to, at least.
It's hard, especially if your business is at home too, right?
Yeah.
There's, I think, a lot of art businesses, do run from home. Not everyone has a studio outside of home. So finding that way how to separate things is, I think, always a challenge. And I find too, like you said, I have to have maybe again an hour and a half or something. I know, Thursday night, this is my time, hour and a half. I have to be ready. I have my Notion calendar. I have everything. Okay, as soon as that 8 o'clock hits or something, this is my hour. I'm going to go do it. And I think even if you are a perfectionist, I think it helps in planning. So there's some good to it. All right, so I have one more question here. Let's try this one. Amanda, have you been able to take any of the skills from your family life to your art business, or vice versa? Do you think it's helped you?
So I didn't do it on purpose, but I think one of the things that homeschooling and running a business at the same time, they've almost just worked together in a way. I haven't necessarily taken one from the other. Is I've always been kind of a wing it, fly by the seat of my pants kind of gal. And it's worked really well for me in the past. And at the beginning, 4 years ago, I actually didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't even really necessarily have a style because I've been doing freelance for so long. My style was whatever the client wanted. So that makes it really hard because I could mimic any style you want me to mimic if you're paying me for a new logo or you're paying me for web graphics. So at the beginning, it was really hard for me to figure out how to not only find the time and juggle the family, but to be able to hone in, kind of niche down to what my style is and what I wanted to do. So I think juggling family and a job and work at the same time, they both work together in having me become more organized and set goals with actual deadlines. Whereas before I was kind of like squirrel, you know, anytime something came up, I would just jump and I would get distracted easy. So I've had to force myself to stay more organized and focused to be able to do both the homeschooling and the art career successfully.
Mm-hmm. I see some nodding heads. I think that's definitely one of the other secrets, right? It's just, yeah, you can't. I mean, I remember before I had a baby and, you know, just as far as workload and things, I could be like, okay, on the weekends is when I do my artwork. So I can sit there for 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours and I can, you know, just progress as far as I want. And that's not possible anymore. So I definitely did have to make changes too, but I did find that it's kind of one of those things with the quote that's like, the work expands to fit the amount of time you have, you know, and you can't fit everything into a smaller time period. That's just some things take the time they do. But I do feel like there's now I'm going to sit down at my art desk and I'm going to make a coffee and I'm going to start a YouTube video to watch and I'm going to, you know, which paints to pick. It's like, bam, you got to go. You got an hour. This painting must be produced. And so I do feel like I've become that much more productive because of the restraints, actually. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All righty. So we are going to move on. For now, if we have time, we will definitely loop back to you, Amanda, and always feel free to chime in as well if you have anything to say to what is being discussed. But we're going to move on to April. Walk us through a typical week in your life.
Starts with Monday.
Don't start on Sunday.
Yeah, the week is I work my day job, obviously, and then I try and fit in an hour to 2 hours before and after work on anything that's business related. I call it my monkey business, and that could be you know, editing a YouTube video, doing a Patreon post, doing orders for Etsy, or working on my portfolio, or live streaming. So there's like a whole bunch of stuff I do. And I tend to do more stuff during the week than the weekend. And I know that it probably should, like, I should say, do what you said, Harmony, like, oh, I can do everything at the weekend. But then when the weekend comes, you're just catching up for all the stuff you didn't do in the week because you were too busy doing art stuff.
Yeah,
so then you have like
have
7 loads of laundry to do. And then we try and do a hike once a week because we just moved to the Lake District. And some of those hikes, we can be out at 6 in the morning and be back at like 5 p.m. and then we're just dead. So yeah, I tend to do a lot of stuff during the week and just try and fit things in. And I think I really agree with what you said about restrictions, because when I'm on holiday or if I take time off work, like a week off work, I think I'm going to get so much done. And then I then get nothing done. I watch like Netflix all week. I'm like, oh, I got all the time in the world, you know?
So true.
Yeah. And I think the way you're doing it is actually healthier, because I feel like when I was doing it that way, I enjoyed the art and I do feel like I get a lot in this flow state and it's great. But at the same time, sitting on your butt for another 8 hours on the weekend, like it's not really a balanced way either. Yeah. Like I sit at my job all week and then I would sit at my art all weekend and not like, you know, see my friends or go out in nature or do anything. So I think your approach is a lot smarter than how I was doing that for a while. But let me grab one more question here for you. I don't think we exactly have it here, so I'm just going to hide this one. But I'm curious if you have anything to share about how it is working a creative job, because I think we all mentioned, you know, teaching or tech, like those are in a way very different from the artwork, but you also run, you know, have a very creative job. So how does that impact you?
Amanda, you probably know because you were a graphic designer, right? So probably see some similarities. But when I was doing 3D, it was very different, which is why I wanted to get out of doing 3D. Like it was very computer based and very technical. But since being a motion graphic designer, like I kind of transitioned to it over a few years. When I first started this job that I'm doing now, currently, it was very boring, like the most boring projects you could think of. So I had so much like creative energy still left at the end of the day. But as it's kind of progressed, and I don't want to brag, but I kind of think some of my skills and like illustrations have helped bring in more creative projects. The more creative projects we do at work, the more energy I'm putting into them. And then at the end of the day, I actually feel like less like I want to do art. So in some aspects it's bad, but in other aspects it's good because I'm getting to be creative during the day, and I can take some of my skills like animation and bring them to my art. I can take my illustration skills and take them to my work. So it kind of creates like a nice relationship between the two. But yeah, it's difficult some days when I just want to watch telly. So. But I find it helps to do something different. So if I've been animation all day on Procreate, I do painting instead, which is completely different, you know. So yeah, take things up a bit.
That makes sense. Yeah, I feel like does that help you then, or is it something that you have to push through to still be creative?
If I am not feeling like doing something, I won't do it. And I kind of tend to go through periods of a lot of work, like I'm really highly motivated and I have so many ideas and I want to get it all out. And then I go through, and people call it burnout, I guess, or other things. I just think it's natural to have ebbs and flows. And when I'm feeling like a day or a week or a month, I just don't want to draw. I don't want to do anything. I just don't. And I used to feel really guilty about it. But now I'm trying to like be more at peace with this is just this week. I don't feel like it, you know? It's difficult though, because obviously then you're putting things on social media and you're not getting like the feedback or the ego boosting. I would just do it for the fame, guys. That's really what I'm doing it for. So
it's working. Well, I hear you. And I think I've also arrived at that point. It's tricky when you're actually trying to build a business, right? Because you're like, well, I need to do something. I need to be producing it. You're putting this pressure on yourself. But every time I push myself, it just ends up being a horrible painting anyway. Like if I'm in a bad mood, I can't paint something nice. So I'm going to ruin the painting I've started if I push forward. I've learned that lesson the hard way too many times. So now I'm totally the same. Like if the energy is there, and I think there's another quote about that, like manage your energy, not your time, you know?
Yes.
So when I have that creative energy, it's like, okay, everything, move aside. We're doing art now.
Exactly.
And,
I find just one small quick thing. When I found my job really boring, I really wanted to build my art career because I was like, I have to be creative, I have to get out. But now I actually really enjoy my job. And now I'm like, I'll just, you know, draw on the side. I don't have like the fire to do it, even though I really want to. It's not like I feel like I need to. And having the job is such a nice security, even though some days I kind of wish I could just work for myself full time. It's nice to have like a safety blanket, I guess.
Yeah. And I think that is also something really that you have to be aware of, right? Is it like you're just trying to escape in some way? Or like, I think sometimes it's nice to have that balance too. Like for me, it's very helpful to have like a more tech focused job where it can be very strategic and analytical and, you know, work with people and all of that. And then like at home, you know, I get to do my artwork. It's me time, it's flow time, it's totally different parts of my brain. And it's a really nice balance. And when I cut that out, like Lona was saying too, for me, like I've also been, you know, very close to burnout when I don't do my artwork because it's like, oh, got to get this finished and get this finished. But then if I never give myself that time, it hurts me more than it helps. Like maybe you achieved a few more little things off your to-do list, but there's a cliff that you're like running towards at full speed. So I think taking that time off, whether you can monetize it or not, to make your art, if that's in your heart, is really important.
So important.
That's an interesting shift for you, April.
All the money I get, literally, I don't really make much profit at the moment because it's so low key now. Like when I first started, I was making not like a lot, but I was making, you know, profit. But now I literally just support my art material addiction. That's all I do.
It's so true.
Wow.
It's so expensive.
You got to work on your pricing, April.
Maybe.
All righty. Thank you so much for sharing. Lona, I would also love to hear from you what a typical week in your life is.
Oh, I'm with Amanda. Typical just isn't in my cards anymore. But I would say that, so I'll start with the day. I usually have a nanny come at 7. We have a very interesting situation here because Andy and I, my husband, we both work from home. So everyone's just here, which is like a different kind of vibe than I used to have. And so anyway, so a nanny comes at 7 to 11, and then from 11 to 1, Andy and I split time. So we have time with Sky in the middle of the day too, which is so nice. So he takes an hour, I take an hour, and then we have another nanny come from 1 to 5. And I still breastfeed throughout the day. And so it's like a very kind of like in and out fluid situation. And then from 5 to 7, we have family time and cook dinner together and all that stuff. And then when I put her to bed is when I can do other things. And sometimes other things means my career, because I have more to do there, or it means cleaning the house, or there's so many things that like I need to fit in after she goes to bed. But that's usually like Amanda, is when I do a lot of the administrative stuff, because it's the right time to do those types of things. And then when I get like a 3-hour block on a weekend or something like that, that's when I get into the more kind of the art. But recently, this last 3 weeks, so you have to give yourself some grace. These last 3 weeks, I had half the coverage because of sickness. My daughter had hand, foot, mouth disease or whatever. And then her teeth were coming out. Andy has his PhD due like tomorrow, his comps. And so did I make
a lot of artwork done?
Yeah, and a new job. And so I'm like trying to impress, my boss. So I'm like, I didn't make any art and that's okay. And there's ebbs and flows, and you kind of deal with that. And there'll be a time over the holiday I'll make a lot of art and I'll make up for it. And so that's been a big lesson for me. It's just giving myself grace and being like, it's okay. I didn't make any art, but I will soon. Yeah,
I think that's so important, right? I wanted to hear a typical week in your life so people understand what's going on, right? What you're trying to juggle. But I mean, I think that, that's the thing. It's if we all had lives where we could easily be like, oh yes, and then from 8 a.m. to 12, I get to work on my art, and then I do this, and like that's not the situation, right? So thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I have one additional question for you. And that is, have you been able to take any skills from your art business to your job specifically? And what did that look like? And I think you sent me something that I'm going to pop up on the screen to share. So you can start chatting, and I'll have it up in just a minute here.
Yeah, actually, this is such a great, I'm really glad we're talking about this. I'll just say that. Because in the beginning, when I started to really become myself, I guess, with my art, I was nervous about my professional life, my coworkers, my boss, seeing that side of me. Because I was like, well, if they see that I'm making all this art, are they going to think that maybe I'm not as effective in my career because I'm not putting that much time in, like my 8 to 5 or whatever. And what I have come to realize and accept, and what I want to share with as many people as I can, is that's not the case. Art has made me so much better in all aspects of my life. It's made me a better mother, a better wife, a better human being in general, but also really better at work too. Some of my best strategic thinking, and I have to do a lot of strategic thinking in my job. It's all about prioritizing and just, strategy is a huge part. The best strategic thinking has been with a brush in hand, because I just get in the flow. It helps me connect the dots, and it's been great in that way. The other thing I would say that art has taught me that I've taken to business is that mistakes are part of the process. Like, there hasn't been a single time where I have not made mistakes making art. It just happens, and it's part of experimentation. Learn from it, you move on, you learn how to make it part of your artwork. Your art's more beautiful for having it, or you learn to just ignore it and and realize that your entire piece is so beautiful, and that one little spot no one's going to ever, focus on. Is Amanda like you? I have like perfection issues. so that I've that's really helped me. And then the last thing I would say is just in general, I think creativity, the more creative you are, the more in other areas of your life, those connections are being made. And it's just helped me kind of take those lessons into the job and family, I would say. What you see here is a mural, and it's interesting. It was commissioned by my previous employer. We had opened a new office, and one of my coworkers was like, "Hey, you make art. You should sell Kairos your artwork." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't even think about that." And so what you see here, this is a little different than my typical style. My typical style is much more complicated and everything, but here, what I pitched was a interactive mural, like a team building exercise. So I designed it, and then I put the lines up there. And did a little bit of like I did the sky, which is like my signature abstract kind of design. But then my teammates actually filled in a lot of the mural itself. And it was just so cool because it helped everyone kind of get into the flow of it and leave their mark, on that wall. And it was an amazing experience, really bonded us all, and had a lot of fun doing it.
I think that's so incredible. First of all, it's beautiful. I love that it stretched you too. I'm going to take this question off because you can't see me while I'm talking.
Yeah, I can't see you.
Hey.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's a beautiful thing to think that it's not taking away from your commitment at work. It's not, it's not something that is distracting, or it's something that you're adding. It's another facet that you have to offer as an employee. And I think creativity is so important, really, when you're thinking about strategy. And, so whether it's a physical mural or it's just that what it's causing in your brain, creating this art, I think it's super cool. And I have not done this, but I have had a similar evolution of my perspective on art. I think when I was like into florals and other things, I didn't want work to necessarily know about that. It seemed like something you're like trying to hide. And even this name, like Harmony Hardin, I think there was a reason I did it, and it was kind of like an alter ego, because people that are close to me know that that is not my first name. So, a lot of you maybe that didn't know then will find out, and they're like, wait, what do you go by in real life? Kind of, what's going on? I thought you're Harmony. So that is kind of because I didn't want, when someone Googles my name for work, for that to pop up right away. Mm-hmm. So that is where I was when I originally started this. But I did something not half as cool as you, but for me, it was cool. I did this kind of, what's it called? April, you would cringe when you saw it. It was like a really, really bad, like, there's like notes kind of animations, like where it's just like, black outlines. I forgot what they're called, but I made one of those.
Whiteboard animation.
Sorry?
A whiteboard animation.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I made one of those in Procreate to like introduce my team at work and what our focuses were for the next, few weeks, and like presented it at this big, like all hands and stuff. And it was received so well. And it was so like, wow, it's such a joy to be able to add and show one more skill, right? And maybe it's not always relevant, but you can show up and enhance your work rather than take away from it. And actually, depending on which country you're in, like now I'm living in countries, the last few years I've moved, but I live somewhere where when you take a job, you actually have to disclose and get approval to run like a side business kind of thing. Mm. And I was kind of like taken aback by that thing, but I also think it's kind of cool because one of the reasons they do it is to prevent that burnout scenario. Right? To kind of see like, hey, okay, how many things do you have going on? Like, are you working full time, and how much do you have to invest there? And so I think maybe you can be taken aback by like, well, why does my employer need to know? But I think it's kind of cool to really show up there's this book, I think it was Sheryl Sandberg or something, and it was Radical Candor. And it really changed my life when I read it. And one of her concepts was like, bring your whole self to work. And yeah, I thought it really changed how I showed up, and that I was proud of my creativity and, you know, didn't need to hide it. So I think that's really, really cool, that that's what you've done here. And look what it's created. Like, you got to leave your literal mark, you know, on the offices. That's so cool, Lona. I love it.
Can I say one more thing? And it has to do with bringing your whole self to work. And it has to do about you, actually.
Oh, goodness.
It's so funny because you emailed me.
Sorry. I'm going to mute you.
No. We have to talk about this because you emailed me about
we worked together like a few years ago, for those of you that don't know.
And you're like, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Cora. I was like, of course I remember you. You like, one, you hired me. So there's that. And then two, I just remember when I started at UCSF, I was like in this hospital environment, and I was like, okay, I have to be someone I'm not. I have to be so straight-laced and all this stuff. And then I saw you, and you had this like radical haircut, and you wore these like really cool sneakers and like cool jackets and stuff. And I was like, who is this person? And it gave me the like license, or just it gave me, the license to be myself. I was like, oh, if she can do it, maybe I can too. And so you changed my life, Cora. So I will not forget Harmony.
That's okay. Everyone knows now. Okay, it's fine. I'm not hiding anymore. It's okay. Well, thank you. Wow, what a nice thing to say. I never knew that. Thank you. All right, I'm going to take your mural down, and I am going to offer to the audience, everyone, the whole art community that is watching, if you have any questions, please put them right now in the comments. We would love to, well, at least to try to answer them if there's anything that we haven't covered. But while we are waiting for some of the comments to come in, I'm going to put up a few more questions, and anyone that feels like answering, just jump in. I'm not going to call anyone out. So, do you have any lessons learned or best practices to share with other artists on the topic of creating this balance?
I do. I have my biggest lesson learned, well, actually I kind of have two of them, is one, to set realistic expectations. There are so many people out there that are trying to sell these, you know, be rich in 2 months or get 100,000 Instagram followers in 6 weeks. Yeah. It's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true. So it's not about lowering your expectations. It's about having realistic expectations. I did not start making money until I've been doing this for 4 years. And it really has only been the last year and a half that I've been consistently making money. And, you know, I've told I have a lot of artists that follow me on Instagram, and they're kind of shocked when I tell them that, because they assume, you know, that I just instantly started making art or making money. And that's not the case. So give yourself time. As a surface pattern designer, honestly, don't even think about giving up. Well, don't give up ever, but don't even consider it until you're at least 3 or 4 years in, because you have to establish your style. You have to take the time to really learn your craft. And you can't do that in like a year or 6 weeks with some class that somebody's going to charge you $1,000 for.
Mm-hmm. I think in surface pattern design, it takes a long time to even get paid, right? That's what I've heard. Like, even if you get your deals, by the time that check comes in, it can be another year or something.
Yeah, it's now that I'm more established, I get paid more. I get paid quicker. But at the beginning, it's kind of like, sure, here you go. And they're like, okay, we're releasing this in, you know, Christmas of 2024, and it's, you know, 2020. And you're like, wait, what? But the biggest thing is, when I first starting out, I almost gave up a couple times, because I was like, I had months where I made $0. Like, I spent more than I made. Like, you know, my Procreate brush collection is embarrassingly large. And, you know, so I just was taking class after class after class thinking that I'm missing something. And I wasn't missing anything. I just wasn't giving it time. So that's my biggest lesson, is just allow yourself time. It's not overnight.
It's so hard, right? That's a tough pill to swallow. It's like,
It
you just
is.
gotta be patient and do the work, right?
Yep.
That's the thing. It's not going to happen on its own, and it's still going to take time. And then there is that potential down the line. Does anyone else want to answer this question? Go ahead.
Yeah, so my biggest lesson learned is, if you can, try to have a creative space. Like, I can see, April, that you have a little bit right there, right behind you. And so it's just having a space that you can go to, that you're like, your brain starts to just, like, it wants to make art. It wants to be creative. Because there's so many times where I'm feeling like I don't have the energy or whatever, but then I go to my space and I see my art that's already there, or some unfinished projects, or just like that. It's like my body knows, or my brain knows, that when I'm here to create. And so having that, whether even if it's a little corner and just a desk, I think is just so important.
Yeah, my last creative space was a desk in our bedroom in our flat. And then I had the printer in the lounge, and I had my computer in our office. And it was like, basically it took over half the flat with my stuff. So when we moved to this house, getting a room was like a luxury. And it's really nice. Yeah. Can I add something, Harmony, actually?
Yes.
It's, I don't know if it's really a lesson or anything, but I would just try stuff. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't. Or if you have to change it, you have to. So I've obviously tried a lot. One of the things I tried really hard on was Patreon. And for the first year, I went hard on that. And I did everything, to like videos, live streams, happy mail, downloads. I wanted to be like, you know, raking in 6,000 a month, like the 3 people on the entire Patreon platform that can do that. And I couldn't do anything else, like my Etsy. I couldn't do art, nothing. It was all going to Patreon, and I had to keep paring it down. And now I'm like on basically a tip jar tier, and it's so much better, like for my mental health, and like allowing me to do other stuff, because I was feeling really like guilty because I couldn't keep up with it, but then I couldn't also do other stuff. And I think I had to go through that. Like, I had to try and go through it to realize. But I'm glad I did it, because it was fun. And now I know if I start it again in the future, I know what to do. So yeah, and also YouTube. If you don't have a YouTube and you want it, YouTube's amazing and it has the best community, I think. So just try stuff. Try everything.
Yeah, I agree. But with YouTube, it goes back to Amanda's surface design idea too. I think unless you are incredibly lucky, YouTube is a part-time job for a year or two that pays nothing. You have to put in the work, and eventually you can monetize, but it's not overnight. Yeah.
No, I get like 60 quid every 3 months or something, 4 months. It's like nothing, but I just love making videos. I do it for a living. So and I love connecting with people on YouTube. You get to know people.
Yeah, the art community is so friendly on YouTube. It's really great. Yeah. I have my lessons learned are kind of like, I think a lot of what I had to apply at work has really helped me to think of my art as a business. And I think if you want it to be a hobby, that's fine too. And definitely don't do it in a way that burns you out. But to see myself as like a business owner and what I'm doing, like, would I give this kind of work to my boss? You know what I mean? So I take the strategies we use there, like the agile mindset, where it's like, you have to plan out the week or the month, and you have to estimate, you have to break down the tasks into whatever 4 to 20 hour chunks, and what can you achieve when. And I do that with my artwork, and I plan. I use Notion to kind of have the month ahead of me. And so when those time windows open up, they're not always predictable, like you guys said. Then I know exactly, like, okay, here's everything that I need to get done this week or this month if I want to move forward in a certain way with my art business. And it also allows me to make, again, without stressing myself out, but just like, okay, maybe I'm stuck on the sofa here, I can't do anything else, but I have my iPad, then I know exactly what I can do in that time, you know? So it's I achieve things every day, even though maybe it's not the exact thing. Like maybe I can't sit down and do a watercolor painting, but maybe I can knock out a sketch or two on an iPad so that when the time comes up where I can paint, I'm ready to go. So that has really helped me personally to just think of it as a business, think of me representing the business, trying to make it professional, have those high standards, and really, yeah, kind of be prepared. That's what's helped me. And if it's a hobby, that's cool. Obviously, don't apply this pressure or these goals. If you just want to paint for fun, that's fine too. But if you want to make it a business, I think you need to treat it like a business. So.
Well, even how you coordinated all of this, it was so professional, Cora. I mean, like we had the itinerary, everything about this, it was amazing. So you clearly put a lot of thought in it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I try.
This was my most organized prep for
Yay! It's working.
Podcast or Instagram Live or all the different interviews I've done. This was the most organized and I loved it.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, you guys are making me so happy. Thank you. All right. We do have some audience questions. Let's show the first one here. Bazuta Art Studio asks, did you have any struggles trying to narrow down your style or niche? Who wants to take this one?
Oh, I can.
Go ahead.
No, Wendy, come on. I don't struggle at all. No, I'm just joking. I didn't struggle because I don't think you can narrow down your style. I think it evolves over time, and you have to be like water, very zen with it. No, I don't. I'm just trying to be funny. I started off when I was drawing. I started drawing people. So I thought that's what you had to do to be an artist. You have to draw people, and you have to draw with watercolor. And it wasn't good. And obviously, if anyone follows me on Instagram, you know that my style and my subjects have changed completely over the years. Even now, like it's still changing, you know. So I didn't really answer that question very well. I'm sorry. Maybe you answer better. That was a terrible answer.
So the answer is yes.
I think maybe the struggle comes when you try and fight it.
Yeah.
That's how I view it. I think when I try actively to find a style, it's not going to work. But I think to me, and it might be controversial, but I think art is kind of like handwriting. Like you can kind of always have that artist touch in it, no matter what you try to do. So I personally don't really try at all. And it just like comes out always looking like me. And for me, it's because of practice. Like that was my approach when I was like, I need to learn how to draw or how to paint. I had this little checkbox and I was like, okay, you need to do, if you want to do whatever, 200 hours by the end of the year and you start now, you need to do 17.5 per week. And like, it was crazy, but that's how I think. And I was just checking them off. So it's just like, just paint. And it didn't matter what it looked like or anything, just try to improve your skill. And that automatically brought out a style. I never had to try. I just had to put in the work.
So I actually did struggle, and I'd like to share that. So I struggled with a couple things. As I had mentioned before, when I was just raising my kids when they were younger, I did a lot of freelance work. So I would be contacted and based on what people needed, I would adapt my style to whatever style they wanted. So I had the skills in terms of layout, color coordination, other little things, a flow that you need as an artist, but I didn't actually have a style. And then when I first started trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I was all over the place. I was greeting card design. I was children's book illustrations. And then finally I found surface pattern design. And back in the first year or so, I paid money to have this, to have my portfolio reviewed. And I was told that I was not unique. And I was like, oh. And I realized that I was just trying to create art for like big box store art. Mm-hmm. And that it wasn't going to work. So I actually did struggle, but I actually have two. So I niched down to just repeat patterns. That's it. I have people contact me all the time and ask for standalone art. I don't do standalone art. I do repeat patterns. So that was tough. because at the beginning you want whatever money's coming in, and it's hard to tell people no. But once I niched down and I got down to just surface pattern design, I actually still have 2 styles. So if I'm contacted for like children's wear, my designs and my drawing style for more kind of juvenile art, children's art, is different than my art style if I'm doing like home decor wallpaper or bedding or something like that. So I have kind of 2 styles. You can still tell they're me, but they're not similar. But no, so I did struggle. It took me probably about 1.5 years of not just trying to do what I think people want to see, but to create what made me happy. And that was a big hurdle I had to jump over. And I know a lot of the new artists that follow me and ask me questions and stuff, I think their biggest struggle. They want to instantly be big box store, like, so they just kind of almost like they're looking at what other people are doing and trying to imitate it. And which means they lose their own style in the process. They're not unique.
That's so tough, right? Because like you said, that patience of trying to monetize and thinking like, this is what I have to do, versus taking a step back. That's a tough balance.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. Amanda, sorry, Lona. I was going to say what Amanda said about having 2 different styles. I think lots of people have a couple of different styles. Some people worry about it, but I think it's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really think I have a style, but people think other people would say I do. Like they will see something I make and they're like, that's Lona. But like we're all talking about, it just keeps changing and I keep adding new mediums and then I incorporate that medium or and a lot of things I don't even put on social media because I feel like sometimes the pressure of recording what I'm making or like taking shots as I do it and like all the stuff that social media kind of requires now, I feel like it takes away from the experience for me. So I end up just creating and then no one really sees it, especially if it's different and experimentation. But I think there's some value with imitating people too, because like that book, like Steal Like an Artist or something, but it's the more different types of art you see and you like imitation when you're a new artist helps because it's like you're kind of learning the skill of it. And then you're seeing all these different types and then you can kind of create your own. And so when I first started art, I was imitating. I was doing Bob Ross and and all sorts of other types of things. And then I finally got to like my own. So, or I still haven't gotten my own, but yeah, it's evolving, like April says.
Can I actually mention one struggle that I just remembered?
Yes.
That I've had very recently, and it's about a style. I took a break from doing landscapes for 2 months. I tried to focus on characters, and then when I went back to doing landscapes again, it's been so long since I did them, and also I tried to add soft pastels into my work, which I never used before. And the combination of trying to add way too much stuff, like mixed media, and not having done landscapes for ages, just came up with like these weird Frankenstein pictures that I just looked at and thought, I didn't make those, did I? And now I'm trying to like revert my style backwards, like 3 months ago.
Ooh, tricky.
That is a struggle.
Wow, good luck. That sounds really tough, actually, April.
And soft pastels are expensive, guys. I bought a lot of them. I thought these are going to be great, and they're fun, but my word, they're hard.
Yeah, I think I had a few, and I tried them a few times and just gave them away. I can't. It's a skill level I know. But very cool. I want to ask you guys, we are a little longer than I thought we were running. We have one more interesting question, and I have one also I would like to add. Does anyone need to drop off though, or are you okay to stay on for a few more minutes? Okay. All right. So we have one more question here from Emma. I'd like to ask how you find the energy / motivation to work on your art business after working all day, like how to switch from day job mode to art mode.
There's a book I really like. It's called How Remarkable Women Lead. And they surveyed all of these incredible female executives that have a family, that are, you know, just doing so much. And people ask them, like, how do you do it? And I think, Cora, you mentioned this earlier, of it's not about your time, it is about your energy. And it's about knowing yourself. It's about knowing what gives you energy and what takes it away. And that's why I like having a break in the middle of the day. Like, take that break. I go on walks. I drink a lot of water. I take care of my body. And I make sure that self-love and self-care is so important. And I like work in things that give me energy throughout the day. I don't wait till the end of the day. I like throughout the day, I work on that. And then I'm not as like exhausted at the end, because creativity requires you to be full. You can't be empty. And so that's how I would recommend it.
Yeah, I also, I learned, and it took me a little while to learn this, but when I try to force it, it never turns out well. And it took me a while. At the beginning, I thought I was following some other surface pattern designers, and it seemed like they were coming out with different pattern collections like every 3 weeks. And I thought, okay, I guess that's what I have to do. And so I was just kind of pumping out these fabric collections, and a fabric collection needs to have, you know, a minimum really of 12 different coordinating patterns that all go together but aren't the same. And so it can be tough. And I realized that my collections that sold were the ones that I had been inspired to draw. Mm-hmm. And the ones that I had just pumped out for the sake of quantity never really went anywhere. Mm-hmm. So I've, in the last, 2 years, I've actually not drawn unless I've been motivated, because I make more money making 6 fabric collections a year than I did when I was pumping out 12 fabric collections a year. So sometimes I don't have the energy or the motivation, and I watch Netflix, or I do something else. But that was a big shift for me, was to feel like I was allowed downtime, and I didn't always have to have the energy to go from job mode to, homeschool mom mode to art mode. Some days I could just be a homeschool mom and just do laundry and cook dinner and not touch any art. And that was okay.
I completely agree. And that's how I have, even when I say I plan everything out for the month and stuff, but I plan it with those buffers. Like if I take on a commission, I build an extra week or 2, because I know if my original watercolor is a fail, right? It's just, I pushed myself too far, whatever. I'm going to have to start all over. And I don't want that stress. I want to be able to get sick for a day, or have a sick family member, or just be tired, or get a great party invite, like something, and not have to be like, oh my goodness, how am I going to juggle all of this? So I think that's a good point, is some days you're not going to have the energy and motivation, and listening to your body, listening to yourself is in the long run going to help you so much more than pushing through and being like, every night I must paint. You don't have to, right? So I think that's a good way to look at it.
Can I add something?
Please.
Yeah, I agree completely with everything you guys said about energy and motivation. But the switching part is what I really liked about Emma's question, because I find it, and I think Lona mentioned this, having the creative space really helps. So I have my office upstairs where I work, but then after work, I always make dinner. And then that takes, 30, 20 to 40 minutes, depending on what it is, eat dinner. And then that's almost like the switch of the day, oh, now it's after dinner, and now it's like art time. And then if I am motivated, I'll draw, and if not, I'll try and do something that doesn't require any creativity. Like last night I worked on my website, which is the most boring task that I can think of, but I did an hour of it, and I was like, yeah, I got 1 page done, woohoo. So yeah, but have dinner. Yeah, when in doubt, have a snack, or my suggestion.
That's sage advice. I love it, April. All righty. I have one more question that is not from the audience, but I think might be of interest to everyone watching, because this is, a talk about art businesses. So you don't have to go into numbers if you don't want to. But I would love to know, as the closing question here, what are the different income streams in each of your art businesses? How do you actually make money and make this not just a hobby?
I'll get first. My biggest income stream is Etsy. It is the last few months to a year has been lower because I just haven't paid any attention at all. Then Patreon, Google AdSense for YouTube, and that's pretty much it. I used to stream on Twitch. I used to get some money from Twitch, but yeah, that's it. 3, and then I would really love to do sell paintings in the future. I'd really love to get into like making bigger paintings and selling them. It's a work in progress, though.
Thank you for sharing.
For me, it's been mostly commissions. So whether it's the murals or a big painting or things like that, that's been my biggest stream. But I would say that what I'm lucky to have now is this huge network of people in my professional career that also want art. So holiday seasons or company gifts that people want to give out. There's all sorts of different ways you can pitch to a company for art. And with a laser printer and with all the different tools that I have, I can also pitch small projects to companies. And so that's been my biggest thing. I think having the website and having Instagram presence and all those things helps kind of legitimize what I do, but I don't really get as much from social media or my website. It's just people aren't going to my website looking for art. They're going to places like Etsy and other things. And I need to start opening up those streams as well. I just haven't had the chance to.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's hard to fit it all in.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have about 5 different income streams. 2 are just recent, within the last 6 months. My number one, I would say, is I am on a couple print-on-demand fabric sites, Spoonflower, there's Carriage House Printery, Hawthorne, and a couple sites like that where people can just go and print my designs on any fabric they want. So that's my biggest income. Second is licensing, that I license for, different homeware or home goods products, stationery products. My third is probably, I would say, commissions, more freelance work. There's a lot of my work out there in the world that doesn't have my name attached to it. I got it and then it's sold out. And then what I'm hoping will be one of my bigger income streams is education. I have 3 courses coming out in 2023. And then another that I'm working on, it isn't released yet, but I love my background in graphic design. I really love Photoshop, even though I do a lot in Procreate. I do a lot in Photoshop as well. And I am creating mock-ups specifically for surface pattern designers to be able to market their patterns on Instagram or social media in a more lifelike, realistic way, instead of it just being clearly a mock-up. So I'm working on that as well. And then there was a question at the very beginning from Katie Cannon Designs, and she said that her biggest challenge is being consistent with posting to social media. And I just kind of wanted to say that, kind of like you guys, I don't get my money from social media. I mean, it's a vanity graphic, that everyone would love to have a big following. I've maybe had 2 people contact me for commissions who just happened to find me on Instagram. The majority of your time, if you want to get into licensing and you want to sell your art, is to put energy into your portfolio and pitching. If you're putting more energy into Instagram than pitching, it's not going to work. So I know everyone wants the huge Instagram following, but it does not make or break your career if you have 16,000 followers or 2,000 followers. Put your time and energy into pitching yourself to companies.
100%. Yeah.
Awesome. I really agree with that. And I think going back to, Amanda, what you were saying about like how, trying to make as much art as possible, whether that's for licensing or that social media hole that we can all get pulled into, right? Mm-hmm. You must post every day. You must do this. You must do that. And with my art, like I cannot create art. I neither have that much time, nor can I paint that quickly. Like it's just, I cannot do that. But what I also learned is to try to make it your own, in the sense that I actually enjoy reels. I might be one of the few artists that likes those. Like I like long form content, but I think it's fun to create them and watch them. But I do it my way now. Like I have one watercolor painting and they're just A4. They're not huge, right? But learning to, without interrupting my workflow, take a bunch of videos and photos and this, and realizing how many different pieces of content one thing can become. Like I always thought it's this expectation of like from start to finish and one painting and you must have a new one each day and stuff. I don't care. You'll get 6 reels of the same painting. Like this is, this is all I have and I enjoy sharing it. So I think that's also, one way. I mean, when you said it doesn't necessarily bring income, but I do have commissions that come in through Instagram and TikTok and things like that. So I think it's like you just gotta kind of do it your own way, and we all have to find our own path. And that's why I love conversations like this, because I think we can all gather little tidbits from each other and see like, hey, what can I learn for my own art business and what is completely not for me? And that's fine too. So, well, I want to give you 3 wonderful artists. First of all, a huge thank you. I really appreciate you joining me and staying longer than I had originally requested. This has gone on really long already, but I loved hearing your insights. And I think it's such a beautiful kind of healthy conversation too, to say, yes, be productive, but don't push at all costs, and take your realistic situation into account. And given that you're probably not going to be an overnight artist millionaire, but you can build and, just do it with joy and do it with balance and bring your own art style to the table. And if you don't have one yet, then just, keep at it until you develop one. So I think those are some beautiful takeaways. Do any of you have anything you wanted to add that I didn't ask you? Any point you wanted to make? Anything, an artist tip or something that I skipped over? Yes, please go ahead.
If anyone doesn't have an art business yet and they want to start one and they're worried and they think, I just have to get this right first. I just have to get this, piece of equipment. I just have to get this many people follow me. Just don't, and just start it, because time's gonna pass, and next year you would have started something or you wouldn't have. And I wish I had started sooner, to be honest.
100%. Yes.
That's beautiful. I agree.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. Should we close on these wide words? Can we top that outro? I don't know. Anyone want to take a chance or? All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to change the camera to just me. I want to thank you all for joining. I'm going to share a little bit more about what's to come in the following weeks. And then in the outros, please check out these artists' artwork. I've shared their socials there. They're also in the description of the video. You can click right away, so you don't need to type it and try to figure out who's who on Instagram, or have a look at their website. We would really appreciate if you connect with us. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so, so much.
Thanks, Hamley.
Thank you.
All righty. So I just wanted to mention a few things. So I would love it if you subscribe to this channel. The goal is to have a conversation like this weekly. Full disclosure, I do not have the artists for next week confirmed. So we may have to skip a week here or there. It is a very ambitious schedule to get everyone coordinated every week, but there is some awesome stuff coming up. So I'm going to show you here. 1 second. All right. So some of the future topics we have running an online shop, getting into art licensing, getting into wholesale, running an artist YouTube channel, and so many more. Because again, I want you to know what are all the options and how are people's lived experiences of actually doing that as an artist. And I want to share with you all the different levels of success and all the different paths that people are on. So some people may be full-time artists, some people may have just started out a few months. I think there's something that we can learn from everyone, no matter the stage. And like I mentioned early in the intro, I want to show you different kind of artists so that you can really get a lay of the land, and hopefully in the comments you can connect. I really hope we can build community. And yeah, join us next week, maybe, or the week after. But if you subscribe, you'll get all the alerts and you'll know when it's the next time for one of these artist chats. So thank you so much. Here come everyone's information. See you next time.